What's up, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? Boogie2988 coming at you live once again through the power of the internet. And today I want to talk to you about a gaming company that is very close and dear to my heart, a gaming company that I grew up with, a company that single-handedly saved video games from the big video game crash during the 80s, the company that has put out some of the best hardware and software known to gaming history, the company that invented Mario Brothers, Pokemon, Kirby, Metroid, some of your favorite franchises, and threw them all together in one giant game called Smash Brothers, which dominates gaming history absolute. And that company is Nintendo, and unfortunately Nintendo has fallen upon some very hard times, and we're going to talk about the details of that. We're going to talk about what it means for an industry as a whole, and we can talk about what you can do to be part of what saves it, if saving is possible at this point. So for those of you who don't know, at the end of last week, Nintendo updated its stockholders and put out a company-wide press release letting them know that not only would they not be meeting their earning expectations for the year, but they would in fact be taking a loss in profit, and they would not be selling quite as many Wii U's as they had expected to sell by the end of the first quarter. In fact, they would fall far short. And this news turned out to be so devastating that the stock value of the company dropped 18% overnight, which is not unheard of, but it is very difficult to bounce back from. A lot of people in the industry are calling this as the death knell for Nintendo, but certainly I've heard that in my entire life. We heard that when they published the original Wii when it wasn't going to be as powerful. We heard that with the GameCube. We heard it with the Nintendo 64, and we'll hear it again and again and again and again as long as Nintendo stays in business, which admittedly may not be very long, but they will have to beat the odds to pull out of this. They've beat the odds plenty of times before. I personally like to refer to the failure of the 3DS when it first came out. A lot of people in the industry like to crap all over the system, saying that it was flawed and it was terrible and no one would want to use that flawed technology. And what's wrong with the DS anyway? There's no reason to make a new system so soon. And that was in 2011, and since 2011, they sold nearly 40 million consoles worldwide. Hell, I own one, my wife owns one, and 90% of my friends carry theirs with them everywhere they go. So Nintendo's flagship product is definitely making sales, and it practically prints money, but not enough to give them a profit in 2013. And the core of that problem, the whole source of it, comes down to one flawed piece of technology, the Wii U. The core to Nintendo's woes is their latest generation console, the Wii U, which is certainly not next generation by a lot of definitions, and is a tragically flawed piece of hardware in a lot of different ways. Not necessarily because the unit itself is bad, it's actually quite fantastic, and I genuinely love my Wii U, but because of a lot of the decisions the gaming industry have made, a lot of the decisions the press of the industry have made, and most notably, the huge mistakes Nintendo has made themselves. See, the thing with the Wii U is they promised to sell 9 million units by the end of 2013, which is a year and a few months after its release. They only managed to sell 2.8 million units in 2013 for a grand total of 4.8 million. And that was devastating news for anybody who owns stock in Nintendo, enough to where a large portion of those people decided to pull out altogether. The history of the Wii U is really weird too, because I followed it since their original announcement, and the gaming industry didn't know what to make of the console. It was slower than what they expected the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One to be. In fact, it turned out to be slower than what they actually are. The gaming industry took one of two stances when it launched. Either it was guaranteed a failure before they ever released it, or many gaming companies ignored it altogether, which is bizarre for the successor of the Wii, the best-selling console of all time. We as an industry ignored it, and in many cases called it a failure before it was even at our front door. And I must make a note here that if you want to see another example of that kind of negativity affecting sales, you can certainly point a finger at me and a lot of other people in the industry who made fun of the Xbox before we ever got it shipped. Unlike Microsoft, though, Nintendo did nothing to course correct even from the beginning, and by the time the console was in our hands, It was very much not done, not completed. The software was slow. There were a ton of problems. Their marketing issues were oblivious to the naming problem. They did a terrible job of communicating to people that it was a brand new console. Most people weren't interested. Those who were interested were confused because they thought it was a peripheral for the system. Their marketing campaign was bad. The system itself was not that great, and the software titles also sucked. Certainly, the worst problem that the Wii U has is lack of software and the lack of third-party support. No one wants to develop for the console because it simply has not sold enough units, and since there's no software titles to sell the console to begin with, we're at a catch-22 situation in which no one will develop for the system that won't sell, but the system can't sell because no one will develop for it. The only people left that can save the Wii U is Nintendo. There are some really great games for the Wii U already out, and there are some really great games for the Wii U coming out. And I am excited about those games, and I've loved the games that I've played. But they do have a very central theme. They are only made by Nintendo. No one else is developing for the console. And unless Nintendo is willing to throw good money after bad and chase this dream, the Wii U will fail. And in fact, there's only 4 titles for the system expected in the first 6 months of 2014, so it looks like even Nintendo isn't interested in fixing this problem. Everyone on the internet and everybody in the industry thinks they have the answer for Nintendo, and certainly I have my opinion too. I think they should double down on the 3DS. I think they should make even more incredible software for it, make some amazing first-party games, encourage that third-party support, get independent games on the system, rebrand the Wii U as an entry-level kids console, get people to play some amazing games on it, and then start with a new console 2 or 3 or 4 years from now that can compete with the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. But that's just my opinion. It doesn't mean that's what they'll do. But here's what you can do in the meantime if you still care about Nintendo the way I have. I can't recommend you buy a Wii U because it's like asking you to buy a Dreamcast, which is a fantastic system, but one that's likely not going to get a lot of good titles beyond what it's already got. It's not going to succeed in the way that we want it to succeed. You got kids at home, though. It's a great way to introduce them to the Pikmin, to the Mario, to the Kirby, to all those great franchises you and I grew up with. But I can absolutely endorse the 3DS XL. Now, a lot of people tell me when I do these gaming commentary videos, I'm biased. And I'll be the first to tell you that I am absolutely biased when it comes to Nintendo. I grew up in a Nintendo-dominated world, and I'm not ready to leave it just yet. They make some great games, and I believe that they will get their feet underneath them sometime in the future. The games that they have created for this system are phenomenal. And it doesn't matter if you're looking forward into the future to things like Smash or the present with Pokemon X and Y, or from the launch of the system with Luigi's Mansion, the original New Mario Brothers 3D World, doesn't matter. Every game I played on this system has been phenomenal. If you're not walking around with one of these in your hand or in your pocket, you're making a big mistake. Nintendo needs your help, and I say you provide it. There's a lot of ways to get one of these systems for cheap and get the games for even cheaper. I highly recommend you do if you're not ready to let Nintendo leave this great big planet. And even Yoshida from Sony says that Nintendo needs to succeed in order for the gaming industry to continue to be what it is today. Powerful words from a powerful man. If you can't take my word for it, take it for his. Nintendo needs us, and we need Nintendo.